Be sure to subscribe and like our channel.
Welcome. This is Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole, Queen City Curio and Apothecary videocast. And it's 6:06 p.m. It's not the 666 though, but is what it is. Speaking on that point, we got some goodies coming up for everybody.
So that was the lead-in for the Goetia right there. That was it, huh?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. All right.
So we have the Goetia immersion coming up. We do apologize about being a little delayed on that. However, we are committed to getting that going for everyone. So
I feel like we were delayed a little by Azure Flame. I mean, because it took them a little longer to make all the engraved laser seals. So,
yep, they are beautiful.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
they're absolutely beautiful and worth it. So,
yeah, that was worth the wait. So we're going to start on the 12th.
Mm-hmm.
The first couple classes, I think, me and Zach agree. We're not going to assume everyone knows how to do evocations. So we're going to actually teach you how to do banishing and how to do evocations as kind of the first two things. Since this is an extended 7-2 walkthrough through Angels and the Shemaphorish, or the Shemaphorish and the Goetia, we're going to make sure that you at least have some ways to get back out of it if it starts going weirdly.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to kick people out if they don't at least show us they can at least do those two things. So like you come in like a few weeks from there, we're going to be like, yeah, like go make sure you watch those classes and then we'll test you.
We are definitely testing people, and we're actually going to be doing style points too. Black robes, peeps. No entry unless you have them. We're doing this properly. So that's what we're doing.
You don't even have black robes yet. You're going to have to go get black robes.
I technically do got black robes, sir. They're just the Asian black robes. I got to get the tea robe. I got to get the Ta robe.
Okay. You said it. Now it's law. And that's what happens. Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole. In case you don't know, I'm Andrieh Vitimus. Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole has been on and off. We take breaks, and we're approaching a break in the season soon.
That we are.
But we always do live shows because live shows is where stuff actually occurs versus in podcasts where, yeah, there's reframing, maybe stuff gets cut out. We've had so many moments on the show. That's why we keep doing live radio. That's why we have a live stream on YouTube right away. And that's why hopefully when we come back, we'll be on the live radio again versus just on YouTube Live. But we keep everything live. That's what we've been doing for 7-8 years. Everything's been live. And then we feed the live stuff over to podcasts. But I know many other podcasts exist, but there are very few other actual live shows where the point is to be live. And we fix up the sound a little, but we don't cut anything out that happens on the show.
That we don't. So you get the, if you listen to the podcast, you're getting the straight audio on that.
Yeah.
So in terms of things, aside from the Goetia immersion that we have August 12th, tomorrow, we're going to be having the centering, banishing, and self-assessment. Am I okay after rituals workshop? That's really important considering where we're going. You need to reflect and know some basics on that, and that's how you can reassess. And then the weekend, go ahead, sir.
I think the basics get a bad rap. So I think it's really like, if you're going to do this crazy magic, like for next to nothing, Zach and me will make sure everyone's actually got the banishing skills. I think between that and like doing spiritual baths, you really can't. This is so like, don't blow it off.
Don't blow it off or you'll blow up. That's where it goes.
Eventually, yes. So yeah, don't blow it off. Even if you don't come to our workshop on Sunday, just do the base, get the basics down. Especially before you do an extended, like any kind of extended spiritual work, you got to have the basics of banishing and cleansing down. So yeah, just don't blow it off. That was my impassioned "don't blow it off" speech. Zach.
Don't blow it off. Wax on, wax off.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
And then weekend after, we got the introduction to shamanic feng shui. So I get to play a little game on the table with people with that and talk about some things. Not your typical feng shui, mind you.
I know, but your family is associated with the venting feng shui. At least your Chinese family.
Yes, it is with many, many structures that I won't be talking about, but they're well known. They're well known. So, and with that, that's what we have upcoming for the store and for our workshops. Today, we have Taren S. And she stood in her first magical circle at 17 years old. She started so early, like all of us. In the backwoods of North Carolina, she's an initiated high priestess within the American witchcraft. 1995. Along the East Coast, she has stood as HPS at many large festivals and gatherings. She stood as Raymond Buckland's HP in New Orleans, and her original coven has hived off several times since forming over 25 years ago. For over a decade, she's worked at Haitian Voodoo Priest Botanica Magic Shop as a spiritual counselor and professional tarot card reader. Furthering her magical and spiritual path, she was initiated as a Mama Brigitte within American Voodoo. She lives in her new location in Charleston, South Carolina, and is the founder of the House of Witchcraft. You can find more information at thehouseofwitchcraft.com. Welcome to the show, Tara.
Oh my goodness. I need to update that biography, that whatever that is. Thank y'all so much for having me. Listening to stuff like that, you just step back and you're like, oh yeah, sort of maybe.
Back in the day, all the memories pass by.
Back in the day, when you start telling my story and how long ago it was, realizing that I stood in my first circle in 1982. And just a couple of years ago.
So I've just started to say I'm some guy who wrote a book who just does shit. And that's it. That's my whole intro.
Hold on. And what was the book? The Legend.
I'm not pimping it.
The Legend. I'm pimping it. Well, it's there on the screen.
I just go with some guy who does stuff. That's what I just say now. I'm like, some guy who does stuff. It's hilarious.
I feel I've reached the point that I need to start using that as my, hey, I'm just some witch. I'm
just some witch. I do stuff. There you go. See?
I do a little something, and leave it at that, you know. I'm part of Southern Conjuring. I'm part of the American witchcraft, and bringing those two realms together here in the low country of South Carolina. And so I'm so happy that I get to speak about it, represent a little. A lot of times they talk about the folk magic of the Appalachians, the folk magic that we find down when we get into the swamps of Alabama. Nobody talks about the low country. And I asked Corey Hutchinson, I don't know if y'all are familiar, he wrote New World Witchery, and he is one of our premier folklorist people. Why don't people say anything about low country folk? And he was like, well, because y'all aren't talking.
Well, that represent, right? Represent.
Right. And so I was like, okay, you know, I need to start talking a little bit more. I typically don't come out very often. I have a little bit of spicy neuro, so I will get overwhelmed, but I'm learning. And so there's some personal information about me in the midst of that
See,
resume.
it's our show brings it
That's
out.
what our show-
brings out the show. It just does. You hear things you would never hear in person.
I know.
Which is all. I mean, that's a good thing actually, because I think people forget that occultists and witches, they're like real people. Like
We're people.
Yeah, real.
No.
Did I just hear 1,000 people's like fantasies of?
I know. Get kicked over.
Just destroyed right there.
Yes, we are real people balancing a real life with a spiritual life, a magical life, and trying to find our way. And sometimes I think folks, they look upon the older generation as somehow that we have this amazing wisdoms. Our life is perfect. We have no challenges. I already said that I'm going to be happy. So now I never have to work at it again. I'm happy. And not understanding that we're always challenging. We're always dealing with those personals that we have. And at the same time, I can see where the witch that I was, the Southern conjurer I was 10 years ago, is not who I am today. We're always evolving, always changing, or at least we should be, is my opinion.
Well, I think that's an interesting point, and it's actually, first of all, beside the side, we should mention what the book is we're going to try to talk about. We might get to it, but I'm going to come back to this, because I see we're already going off the rails, which is good.
This is good,
because it's actually could be a better conversation, better radio. But we're actually going to talk about Conjuring, Dirt, Magic, Footprints, Crossroads, and Graveyards, which is a great book. So if we don't talk about anything else, there's lots of recipes in there. They're all fantastic. So making a pitch right off the bat to go back to this whole balancing of spiritual life. There it goes.
There you go.
I think if we're going to get a copy.
We're going to get a copy eventually.
Right. So if you're in Toronto, proper, or you're in the GTA, the GTA and GTA joke still applies. Grand Theft Auto and the GTA.
Oh, it totally does.
Does. I know for the younger listeners, But anyway, if you're in if not Grand Theft Auto, if you're in the Greater Toronto area, if you come to our store, Queen City Curio, Wuji, just call us. We have a whole library, and this book is going to be here, and you can read it and kind of check it out, and then decide, hey, I want to buy that, because that's the point. You got to support the authors, but you get to see it, you get to do it. Hell, half the time, with a lot of the books we have, probably this one, you'll see us start being like doing stuff with dirt, or if you just ask,
Absolutely.
Oh, we're just like, you want to do what? Oh yeah, okay, we'll go buy the supplies. We'll show you how to do it. And so that's how we are. So before that, so going back to the topic of balancing and being a real person and balancing the spiritual life, and the idea that once you achieve happiness, you're done. I think that was great that you brought that up, because that's probably the lie that everyone thinks about the occult the most, right? Yeah. Isn't that the Hollywood ending of the fairy tale? But I think for those of us who actually practice, we actually understand, that whole spiritual journey doesn't actually ever end. And you always have to, right? Like, it's a constant struggle against whatever limitations you have right now to become something different or something more, or to better other people's lives, that your situation has changed radically. So I think that's a wonderful point, because it's a real misconception I think a lot of people have, like, that their teachers or the people that they're learning from don't struggle. I think we lost Taren.
Nope, she's still there, I think.
It's frozen.
Oh,
nope.
She'll be back.
Frozen.
She'll be back.
See, you remember in the days of AOL when for the people,
you got mail days? I do. I still got the ding in my head.
You've got mail. You've got mail. See, now Taren cursed her computer before we started, instead of saying, Oh, nice computer and internet. Stay with us. Would you like some rum, computer? You know, like so. Do not curse your computers.
No, they will pull vengeance. They will
At the
pull
worst
vengeance.
possible times. You know, the funny thing is, Zach, is that you actually like one time made fun of me because you're like, oh yeah, look, I have all this
I
like
did.
crystal grid right on my computer, and you're like,
What the hell is this? And then I'm like, oh, this makes sense now.
right? Right? Yeah, like I have a crystal grid around the microphone and the camera and everything, and like, there is a lack of connection problems. I'm just saying.
Yep, that is true. That is true. I mean,
So you're gonna work in the back. You're gonna work in the background to get Taren back. I hope.
Yep,
I hope.
She is back on, so I'll put her back on
Okay.
the stream.
Very good. You got to move me over.
I do.
Okay.
There we go. There you are. You're back. We're talking
See, we were
about
just
the tech.
saying. We're talking about the tech. Like, never curse the computer's spirit.
Okay. I will promise I will leave the appropriate offerings. I do not know what happened other than I was cursing at my computer prior to this, and it, like you pointed out,
we said don't do that. All you have. Here, let's all do it together. Oh, great computer, keep us online.
Keep us online, please.
There you go.
Please.
There we go.
Now we could go pay a goon too if we want to. But
we could.
So sometimes do it when we're.
Well, that or we could, as you were saying earlier, with the crystal grids, we could grab some dirt crystals and just put it on there too to help a little bit.
Well, we're speaking about dirt today, so I mean, like,
right.
we could go get some library dirt to help.
Well, let's talk about dirt. Do you know if you hold a handful of dirt in your hand, you are holding the entire universe? You are holding everything that ever was, everything that is, and everything that will be. In your hand are things both dying and being born. That is the power of dirt. Now, if you take that and think about the certain places, certain spirits, certain energies being infused with it, you can understand how powerful it can become. Working with dirt has a way for us to connect to our ancestors, to connect to where we've been, to connect to where we're going, but most importantly, to connect to where we are in the moment. The most powerful dirt you have is the dirt of your backyard. Everything that you need is growing there. And that's my little, welcome to the land of dirt. And if you want
remember, some people don't actually even have backyards, so you have to specify the dirt, maybe.
Right.
This is Toronto.
You're absolutely right. Where people, do you have an actual backyard of dirt? But you do have dirt nearby. You have
they do have dirt in apartment complexes. Yeah.
Right.
And being mindful of the fact that what's growing around you, even as a city witch, an urban practitioner, magical practitioner, you should be able to walk through the city with a basket and come back with everything you need.
I'd agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It doesn't matter.
There's a lot more plants
out in the
a lot more plants than people think.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lot different plants growing and well, people would think they're weeds, but they're really not. There's a lot more of that. They are weeds, but they still have uses. I mean, even dandelion root can make good wine.
Yeah, they can, and plantain. And it's great.
Dandelion root, though, think about a dandelion root. It can grow anywhere. It grows between the cracks of concrete.
This is a very interesting story around this, because basically one of the first things that when I was teaching Zach how to work with herbs, I had made him work with dandelion.
That you did, and that was hardcore as an exercise, because I went to the park. There's a little parkette I used to live by, and I'd be doing these meditations with weeds. And at the time, I was a student of Chinese medicine, and I'd be going to the one Chinese medicine teacher I was apprenticing. And with Andrieh's exercises, I was able to measure that throughout the pulse and everything to the point the teacher was like, "What the hell are you doing?" Because this pulse and all your symptoms seem like you're having a stroke, but you're perfectly normal. Just connecting with the dandelion itself with that exercise Andrieh gave me. And then as soon as I stopped, everything for my pulse and energetic regulations, teacher really was actually shocked with that one. So I was able to measure it objectively outside of myself too with that. But that was the will to live because dandelions keep going.
Dandelions live through anything.
And the journey of the dandelion can also be represented in the tarot deck as the journey of the fool.
Step off the ledge to places you shouldn't be and still grow.
Yes. Yes. I mean, we talk about it. My tattoo is the dandelion.
Well, there you go.
See, there you go.
All right. And it is within Conjuring, it is one of our very powerful roots. And I agree with you for teaching that as a first root to speak to the dandelion spirit, the spirit of the root of the dandelion. It so wants to work with you. It's such a welcoming, come into my space. And it has so many applications, not to mention you can make a salad out of it.
Yeah, you can make a salad out of leaves. There's wine out of the roots. There's sort of a coffee substitute that you can sort of make out of the roots too. Yep. There's like, everyone thinks it's worthless, but that's like, I mean, that's kind of like the whole thing about dirt, right? Like everyone thinks dirt is generally worthless, but I mean, in a way, that comes down to, especially in Toronto. Maybe it's better in South Carolina, but here, like, I mean, the general like use of dirt, no one does it because no one's grounded. Like,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not grounded at all. So it's like, to get your hands dirty in the dirt, like the fundamental birthing thing of like even be able to feed, like even be able to feed ourselves, like, comes from the dirt. And to these like very dandelion's not a humble plant. Dandelion's still sort of like the eye of the tiger and the will to fight, like, but in a nice way. It's not like Nightshade or something where it's like, I'll kill you. I'll kill you right now. Like, actually, Datura is more like that. I'll kill you. I'll give you insanity. Don't treat me right. I'll give you insanity. I mean, those are the famous, like,
those are the famous ones, or like, Sting Nettle, where it's like, bring it.
Dandelion's just such a non-assuming, like, I will fight and survive plant. Like
I think that's why within Southern Conjure and also within Hoodoo, there's a tremendous amount of respect for that root. Conjure at its heart is about making something out of nothing. And I think the dandelion, like you said, it's so unassuming. You just walk by it unless you truly get that you understand. And the power of walking in your backyard, coming back with all of the ingredients you need and creating a working, and staying in your dirt, learning to work with the genie loci, the spirit of place that is held by that dirt. We talk about, these different places with different spirits. What's holding them there? The dirt. The memories that the dirt hold is why the genie loci are sitting in that place. So if you can take that dirt and learn to use it in magic, you will find that there's a lot of really good applications. Low Country Conjure, we are known as the necromancers. Our region is from right above Charleston, South Carolina, to below Savannah, Georgia. We encompass two of the older colonies. American colonies, both for Charleston and Savannah, are very old cities here, and they've had a lot of death. There was a time in Savannah where we dealt with influenza, smallpox, yellow fever, and it all hit at once. And there was 1,000 people a week dying. I mean, they literally were stacking people in the streets. Charleston, South Carolina has been through the Revolutionary War, a great fire, an earthquake, and of course, the Civil War. To say that it's surrounded by dead folk is an understatement. And so for us in the Low Country, we've really learned to work in our graveyards. We are surrounded by the dead. We learn to, spend time. I often joke with folks when they ask about it. I tell them, go watch the movie Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. If you're familiar with that movie, it delves into Savannah, and it also delves into the Conjuring folk. They highlight a woman that the movie calls Minerva. That's not her real name. That was her movie name. She was a real person here in Savannah, and her grandniece is still a practitioner here in the area. She stops by Papa's shop and has lunch with him.
So you talked about a little bit of necromancy. So
yes,
how does one start talking about, because a good section of your book is about graveyard dirt. So how do you start that process of collecting it and working with the spirits in there?
You start by working within your ancestral realms. Start by having a family, and family does not necessarily mean blood. Spirit family as well is applicable in this. All right, but start by working with ancestors, spirit guides, all right, and things like that, and developing a relationship with them is how you would start. Learn, going and getting a small, and when I say small, I do mean small. I always tell people, you only need a tablespoon or two. Don't be showing up with a gallon-sized zippy bag or a bucket.
I think that's pretty important, actually.
Yeah, it is actually.
All right. Why folks think
people
that you need to show up with a shovel and a bucket? I've never done that. I have a nice little spoon. I typically have a white handkerchief that I keep in my basket. I will carefully take, the top layer back. I take a little scoop, maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons, and I put it in my white handkerchief, and then I carefully replace the upper layer. Part of working with the dead is respect of the dead, and that means we leave no trace. If anything, you should leave that site better than you found it.
I think that's what I would usually tell people is leave it better.
Yeah.
De-weed the great, well, not de-weed because we're talking about dandelions again.
Yeah.
But, clean it up, make it look nice. Yeah. It's like there is a kind of myth out there about graveyard dirt. People do kind of go in with a shovel and they get heaping things. And like most spells, we're using graveyard dirt. It's a pinch.
Yeah.
It's a little pinch. You don't usually use a lot for the spell work, although that's kind of we're probably saying something controversial compared to. I think we're probably saying something controversial compared to YouTube, but.
Oh no! I'll also tell you, mullein is not a replacement for graveyard dirt. All right.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
know
It's not.
Some of the contemporary pagans have put that out there. Mullein is an herb of the dead, like we have flowers of the dead. Calendula is a flower of the dead, but it is not a replacement for graveyard dirt. Mullein is an herb of the dead that we can trace for thousands of years in funeral rites, but it is not a replacement for the dirt.
Well, I think that comes down to the idea that I think that comes down to the grounding issue again. Like, mullein, you go down and you go to your cult store. We have it. You buy it. You're happy. But when you go down to the graveyard, it's a whole half day to a day because you got to get down in the dirt, make friends, and pay the cemetery to get it, and pay the cemetery to even get the dirt out. And people realize, oh yeah, I'll just use mullein. right? Because I could just go buy it. But even that's if you just buy it out of the store, you still have a lot of steps to do. But it's not the same. It's related. It's corresponded, but you're absolutely.
I burn basil as a way to invoke the dead, because basil is one of our oldest herbs of the dead that we have documented in history, its use in the temples and association to dead. Also, mint is another one of our oldest of herbs when it comes to necromancy. And I burn those, yes, as a way of offerings and a way of respect for the dead, because these are herbs that have been burned for thousands of years for them. And again, that giving offerings, giving respect. When you decide you're going to go get graveyard dirt, there is a complete procedure, starting with go take a good spiritual bath, good spiritual shower. All right. Get yourself straight first. Make sure you have a reason to go to the graveyard. You just don't go grabbing dirt because you're bored. All right. You have a reason to go in there, and you are communing with, making a contract with a spirit when you take dirt off of that grave. So you need to know who's in the dirt. I was just talking with somebody who had told me that they had purchased graveyard dirt from a judge. My question back to him was he a good judge or was he a corrupt judge? And the guy said, I don't know. And I said, well, you probably ought to before you use it.
Well, there's uses for both of those type of judges too.
Absolutely.
Right. Like, I mean, like, it's not that you just want a good judge. If you just want people to rule in your favor, maybe you want a corrupt judge so they can help out and you just pay them some food.
Right.
Yep.
You don't
like,
know.
here you go. Right. A good judge might not rule in your favor if you're actually guilty.
Yeah.
Right. But you need to know, is this a fair and honest judge, or is this a corrupt judge? And how that applies to the working you're doing. Like you said, I really may be looking for a good corrupt judge.
Exactly. I mean, do you want to win, or do you want to? Right. Like, if you're somewhat guilty, you probably want a corrupt judge.
Right.
Or at least one who took bribes.
Yes.
Yeah, I need a judge that took bribes.
Exactly. But
other times, you want a fair judge who sees the truth and honesty of the situation.
Yeah, correct. Like, especially if you're not guilty and you're actually being wrongly persecuted. I mean, that's the judge example, but there's a lot of other things. Like, I think in the store we teach people. Obviously, we're a wellness clinic, but we're both pretty solid necromancers. Before our landlord made us take it down our shrine, we had a public ancestral shrine for everyone to just go to. We're going to put it back up.
We're putting it back up.
We're putting it back up, yeah, in a couple weeks. Like, not in the same place, but still, one of the things we tell our students is like, well, go to the cemetery. We're a wellness clinic, so let's go find doctors, because we're right. If you want healing work, maybe we should go get a doctor. And it turns out, like, one of the beautiful things now that people couldn't do back in the day is most cemeteries have pretty good records.
That they do.
Like,
you can gravefinder.com.
Yep. And then once you get their name and you know that they're a doctor or something like that, there's still pretty good records and like ancestry.com and other places that you can get a whole lot of information that perhaps before you'd be stuck if you didn't have know somebody who knew the cemetery. But now,
well, used to, with you're dealing with local folk magic, so you would know in your community if he was a good doctor or not. You would know, the reputation of that judge or that police officer or whoever's dirt you're going. So you would already have an idea.
You'd have a good idea. Now you might not.
No, we've lost.
I mean, now you might need those technomantic tools to help out get what we kind of lost as communities.
Yes, we've lost the small community. I mean, now I live actually right out my back door. It's a graveyard.
Nice.
Nice.
And I know the history of the folks in that graveyard, but I've been spending the past couple of weeks learning it and taking some time before I've yet to step 1 foot in that graveyard because I've just moved here. All right. I tell folks I've spent the past 7 years in a foreign country. I was in California. We lived here on the other side of Charleston, and my husband had a great opportunity. And so we moved to California, and now he's retiring and I'm back. And when we got this property, one of the big thrills was the fact that it backs up to a graveyard. And I've spent the past 2 months slowly researching and unwinding it. And until I feel like I have the stories of those folks and that I know how to give proper respect and honor to them, I'm not going in that graveyard. I'm going to do some more research. I'm going to the local museum and finding out about it. I'm also I just found out this morning where the Planning Commission is, because I want to find out where the original graveyard was to the graveyard I see today, the history of it, and all of that. I need so that when I walk into that graveyard, those spirits know that I've spent my time. And that is so important when we talk about working in the graveyard. So much of our work is done outside of the graveyard. We've taken our spiritual bath. We know our intention. We've really worked on it. We've thought, we've prayed, whatever, to get that sign that, yes, this is what I need to do. All right. And then we go into the graveyard. You brought it up earlier that just stepping in the graveyard itself means that I've got to give honor to the gatekeeper. I got to make sure that he's happy that I'm there.
And every system has a different gatekeeper, but everyone does have some sort of, I mean, the cemetery, well, I mean, if you do paranormal investigations, one of the things you realize really early on is that graveyards are the least paranormal activities, unless somebody knows how to open up the gate to the cemetery. In which case, then all of a sudden, and if you get permission, boom, you just get so many paranormal hits. Like on its surface, like a graveyard has almost no paranormal activity at all, right? Until you open the gate. And then all of a sudden, it's like, I envision it like you're stepping into a different world. Like of the stories, like in the stories, like you're actually stepping into a completely different world that different rules kind of come into play. And that's the thing. If you're not doing that, then what are you doing? Again, like you have to, and then not all cemeteries are going to be amicable to you.
Yeah.
Right. That's the thing. Some cemeteries have logistical issues to get dirt from, especially here in Toronto. Like some cemeteries out in the middle of nowhere, okay, you just walk in, nobody cares because there's no one around. People have picnics in the cemetery here. They're running through the cemetery.
They're walking their dogs. It's like you gotta go incognito.
Even the cemetery is friendly with you. You still have logistical issues that go along with what you're saying. Like it's not just the spiritual. You got the spiritual bath, which you definitely should take, or someone would clean it. You definitely have to see what the feeling is when you go there. You definitely have to open up the gate, and you have to actually know the logistics of the cemetery itself, because like you just don't know. Like if you just try to go in there like blind, it's like what's gonna. I mean,
it's a Leroy Jenkins on that one. You're going blind. You don't know what you're getting.
Yeah, that's not good. Don't call up what you can't put down. Is good rule of thumb with it. Don't wander into graveyards thinking that you can try things. You cannot try things. Either you are or you aren't. Going up to that and the gatekeeper and asking permission, like within our tradition, we refer to it as opening the crossroads. And when I open the crossroads and I open myself into liminal space, into astral spirit realm, all right, I need to be prepared for what's there. And
it's not always as pleasant as people think. It's not like, I mean, sometimes it's very pleasant, but sometimes it's also just a little, people have done certain types of rituals in there and the dead are angry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're spending the whole day not getting dirt, but like appeasing the spirits to basically be like, calm down. It's okay. Okay, let's do a little prayer and cleansing right here. Like, I'm praying for you. Let's get this junk out of the cemetery. And then that's all stuff that people, because I mean, the notion, I think, and I think you'll agree with me that, graveyard dirt's the most famous of all the dirts.
Yes.
But there's almost dirt. You can get dirt from any place and actually use it. But there's this notion of the graveyard, particularly like, it's like a vending machine, right? You go in, you get the stuff, you
get on out,
right? You get on out.
You may not like what you take home if you try to do it as a vending machine.
But I think there's a lot of people who try that, right? That is that notion of
absolutely. One of the things in the shop that over the years, periodically, we have young folks that took a Ouija board to the graveyard. And
that's the worst. That
is the worst. That is the worst.
And
one of the least protected, most open, like divination tools where the spirits screw with you the most.
Yeah, so I'd like to tell all your viewers, do not take the Ouija board to the graveyard.
And here, I'll even up that. Do not take the Ouija board to the graveyard and imbue psychedelic or alcohol in the graveyard while doing the Ouija board in the graveyard at midnight. That's just don't do it. It's just not worth it.
No,
don't be doing it unless you want to teach people a lesson. I've had people say that to me. I'm like, I'll take you up on that. I know this place. Let's go. No one goes after that.
I mean, that's kind of the thing. Graveyard dirt is kind of the famous dirt. But your book kind of makes a case. There's a lot more dirt that is potentially useful.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the other famous ones is court dirt. Which you can use to obviously sort of win court cases.
Yep.
There was one curse that I kind of liked that I read about with the prison dirt, where you kind of get 4 prisons to lock somebody down. I'm thinking I might have to. I didn't think of that, but I've used prison dirt, but the 4 is better. I like it.
Well, there's some. We know where the prisons are, sir. We know where they are.
Yeah, dirt from 4 prisons. You can also dirt from a prison, dirt from a jail, dirt from a judge's home, and create a nice little recipe with that. The power of footprint dirt. Just taking where someone has stepped is
foot tracking magic.
Foot tracking, yeah.
Yeah, tag locks, I think, is what some people call it, where you're looking for a personal item. And we often think, I need to get the hair from the brush or fingernail clippings, or a picture. And you never really think, you dismiss or don't understand that the dirt from where they walked is just as powerful.
Right. Although that's a little tougher here because everyththing's
concrete.
You're walking behind someone with a broom or a little dust Swiffer thing, vacuuming it up. It does get, that's where it's about being creative. And it's really amazing how much actually on a sidewalk, if somebody walks across the sidewalk, I will be out there with my little duster and dustpan. And it is no problem to get enough dirt to use. Again, I only need a little bit. I need a pinch. I just need a sprinkle.
Well, I mean, I guess there's some things you could do with a random person, unless it's a targeted person. But I mean, what would you use a random person walking on the sidewalk dirt for?
I wouldn't necessarily a random person as much as a target. If
Oh, okay. So
a
yeah,
targeted
yeah,
person and I know they walk across the sidewalk, that is
right.
just as viable to me as if you walk across a yard.
So I get it now. Like
you
you're scoping somebody out.
You're
Like,
right,
scoping.
yeah.
yeah,
Conjure folk, we work both before midnight and after midnight. And that's something that a lot of people are like, oh, you curse, you're dark, baneful magic. But we have very strong moral compasses. We have very strong ethical guides. And we work within righteous vengeance, the right to defend.
well, I mean, I think this is
that.
another.
This
I think
is
this is another real long topic that
mhm.
obviously we're doing 72 weeks of the Goetia. We probably don't necessarily care about
No.
the moral arguments, but the simple fact is the matter is that if someone is going to rob your house, I would take a baseball bat to them. It's the same as a curse. I mean,
Well, for Conjure, it is for us very important that we do have that moral compass. Many of us do work within you talked about the grimoire traditions. Our grimoire is the Bible. I wrote, Hoodoo in the Psalms, which I tell folks was the love letter to my grandmother, who was a Southern Baptist prayer healer, who anytime you asked her something, she quoted the Bible, told you a verse, told you a story. Through her, I've learned the power of the Psalms, understanding also the history of the Psalms themselves. Because the Psalms predate Christianity. The Psalms predate Judaism. The Psalms are at the beginning of the oral tradition. We have Psalms of King Solomon, who is the son of King David, who is the father of modern Western occultism as we know it. It is through King Solomon that we have the workings with the demons. We have Psalms attributed to him. We have Psalms attributed to Moses. The Psalms isn't the grimoire laying in plain sight. And for the Conjuring folk, we know that. We use it. There are verses of lamentation and there are verses of incantation, magic. All right, that is in there, that it was given to us long before the church ever tried to take it out. And so it's very important when we work the Psalms that we do have that righteous side to it, because if you work within the Psalms, you're working within the rules of Yahweh. And Yahweh says,
I think no one in the modern, I totally kind of agree with that, but no one in the modern terms that you're speaking to would understand that.
Yeah, that's true.
As in, it's not worth talking about morality, because the minute you're willing to stick up for yourself in a fight, that's already immoral, because that's the idea. But it's not.
Correct.
It's not in most religious practices outside the West. Like if you go to Haiti, people will stick up for themselves. If you go to Conjure, people will stick up for themselves. If you're doing, Chinese Taoist magic, people will stick up for themselves. But granted, you're right. The Psalms and the Conjure in general basically have an idea of, you stick up for yourself, but there's a point where you shouldn't be an asshole.
Yeah.
We do have an unwritten "don't be an ass" rule.
Yeah, I mean, come on. If you're cursing everyone all the time, you're being an asshole, right? Kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I think I think the very people, when you talk about the ethics, any negative magic would be forbidden, and it's sort of like you're throwing. I think it's like throwing pearls before swine to kind of talk about. Because they're just not going to agree with it. But there's a moral code, but it's like they just wouldn't agree with it. Because any negative action, even action to protect your family, they would not necessarily agree with. Although, I mean, if your family's livelihood's on the line and someone's spreading lies about you, I would think you should want to protect your family.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand that thinking. I mean, for me, I see where Mother Nature is both kind and cruel. That duality can exist in the same space, where don't define this idea of if I throw a curse that it's bad. Put it in that box of good or put it in that box of bad. That there is this place in between.
Well, it's more neutral.
Yeah, and I think what you're getting at is you throw the curse because it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Or
yes.
It's absolutely necessary. It's not that you want to do it or you like doing it. It's just necessary.
Back to the right to defend. And if someone comes at you, you have the right to defend yourself, your family, your property, your reputation, whatever. You have the right to defend. If you slap me, I'm going to slap you back.
It's interesting because this goes right into graveyard dirt back.
Right?
Right? A lot of the spells that are most, I mean, you could use graveyard dirt for a lot of positive things, way more positive things than people could possibly imagine. But a lot of the spells with graveyard dirt, the famous ones, the most
go for dust.
Watched, they basically go for curses. They go for curses, right?
But you can't work graveyard dirt only on the dark side. If you do, it's going to overtake you. You need
so a better way of saying it is that you could work it on the negative side only, but you probably will have unintended consequences.
Yes. It's like anything.
That you probably don't want, yeah.
If you're working out of balance, all right, if the only reason you're going into that graveyard is so that you can curse and do misfortune and baneful things, after a while, that's all that's going to surround you. I mean, like energies attract like energies. And so you need to be going into the graveyard most of the time, giving your thanks, giving gratitude, giving offerings, speaking their names out loud, letting them be remembered, tending to those graves, because that's where the blessings come in working with the dead, where you have that little whisper in your ear of foreboding, where ooh, maybe I shouldn't do that, because you got energy, spirit folk around you guiding you, because you've spent the time to tend to them. If all you seek is dark in the graveyard, you will find only dark in your life. It won't go well.
Yeah, we all know people would just go to the graveyard, just find the murderers, right? And that's all.
And again, you look at their lives and the totality of their life, and it's out of balance. It's a shithole. And you're like, my life is blessed. My life is really good. Dark magic's been great to me. All right. And that's because I walk it in balance. I make sure that I'm saying thank you 3 times as many, 10 times as many, 20 times as many before I'm asking for anything. Don't be going into a graveyard. Don't be coming up around asking for dirt of any community that you have not given to. And that is something else to be mindful of. Just because you can walk in a graveyard don't mean it's yours. Do you have a connection to these folks, this community? What have you done for this community that entails you to take that dirt?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real.
That's a huge thing. Yeah.
I mean, when I lived in Cleveland, I can't say, I won't say which graveyard it was, but I mean, I spent weekend after weekend after weekend spiritually cleaning up the graveyard before even asking her. I mean, like, just getting rid of all these garbage curses that were like hindering the dead weekend after week. I mean, Zach saw me do this weekend after weekend after weekend, walk in the graveyard, doing prayers, bringing incense with me, like, you know, weekend after weekend, cleaning it up, breaking negative magics that, like, in some ways were offensive to the dead because they didn't understand that the people being used for offensive magic were not like murderers. They're just normal people, like kind of getting pushed into this negative role weekend after weekend, hour after hour, just to get it there. Now, granted, after I did that for like a long time, they're like, "You're our buddy. Like, if you need something, come on in, right?" But there was a lot of work that happened before that. Like, it was a lot of effort. Like, so I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, yeah, just because you can get through the gate doesn't mean anyone's interested in talking.
And that's, I think, a lot of folks, necromancy is not a microwave oven. It doesn't happen in 30 seconds. It's not insta magic. And I think I see out there where people like you were talking, oh, I just want to buy it. Just send it to me, Amazon. I'm a Prime member. I can get it overnight. That's not how magic works. And that's damn sure not how working with spirits work. You have
any kind of spirits, like, you have to put in the time for relationship. Like, I mean, that's going to be, I mean, we were talking about the goetic immersion because we talk about Solomonic magic. We're like talking all about relationship management. Like, you go and trying to torture the spirits, which is, there are techniques that I've seen where you kind of go and torture the dead too. And they never turn out well after a while, right? They don't. I mean, you might get results one time, maybe, and then bad things seem to happen or pop up, or, you know.
Where you get into the occultism, into some of our grimoire traditions, you're dealing with commanding and compelling. And so, yeah, you need to cast 7 circles of protection because you are pissing someone off. Where when we get into conjuring folk magic, we're about enticing and making friends with. Taking the nature of letting it work. We're just like, hey, we're friends.
And actually, I think that's a good way to kind of bring us full circle towards, well, it's already been an hour almost.
It has been. It goes by quick.
It's this idea of, like, you know, graveyard dirt is the one thing, but wherever you're going getting the dirt from, you really are trying to make friends with that area, or friends with the general vibe or energy, or if you want to call it genus loci of that location. You're not necessarily trying to compel. And the thing is, I think one of the secrets that most people miss that's coming out in this particular show is that, you know, friends are a lot more reliable than slaves. Slaves always rebel, always.
I love that. I'm going to steal that from you.
You just put my little hashtag out there, hashtag Andrieh Vitimus, so I get my name back out there. So maybe I'll write another book instead of one book. Maybe I'll be like you and write like 10 books, like, instead of one, which, which I'm embarrassed about because I have like 30 projects on the shelf for different book ideas. They're halfway done. They're kind of embarrassing.
I think a lot of us suffer from that. I know I do.
I think I just need to get some people around me who will whoop my butt.
There you go. You need to hire somebody to just keep you on track.
I got to find a very effective author in the graveyard and make a deal with them to whoop my butt.
Yep.
Oh, I love that idea. That's brilliant. I was like, I should have thought of that one on my own.
There might be some right in the cemetery behind you, right?
I know.
Yes. I'm hoping, I'm getting close to making friends with them. Like I said, Conjuring Dirt, for me, it actually took me almost 4 years to write the book because I wanted to represent well. And from the time I wrote Hoodoo in the Psalms, and for me, when I wrote Hoodoo in the Psalms, I was still inside the bubble. I hadn't really understood how the big world perceives us. And Conjuring Dirt gave me a chance to come back around and discuss what Hoodoo is, its place that it runs alongside Southern Conjure, I mean, I just had dinner last night at a local Geechee restaurant, and how close these systems are running, but there are distinct differences. You know, I just wanted to put that out there. So Conjuring Dirt for me was very much an opportunity to write about what the Low Country, like I was talking earlier, our relationship with the dead. We've been having a very deep relationship with the dead for hundreds of years now. The book's available for pre-order, so please go out and get a copy of it. And I want to
So what things?
both.
Well, we're going to also what things do you have coming up soon?
Yeah, events, workshops, anything like that.
Actually, none.
Nice.
Nice.
I am busy getting to know the spirits in my backyard. I am busy getting to know what's going on here. And so I'm planning on spending the next 6 months in the dirt.
Nice.
And so I'm very excited to announce that I'm like going back. I think sometimes we need to be careful that we don't get lost in the social media promotion production. And sometimes we just turn and go sit in the woods.
I just posted something on Facebook. It was hilarious. That was exactly what you just said.
It was.
I mean, like, it's amazing. You were like, I'm going to read it because you like, I think you'll get a kick out of it because what I said was basically like, you know, you could be I called it a shogian or shojian, a show magician. Like I made up the word shojian, you know, where you constantly post everywhere and you might get money and you might get acclaim, or you can go and understand and work towards the miracle of being more than you were yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then use that tool for acclaim in service of that goal to expand yourself.
Yes, sir. And I'm feeling that time since I've changed locations to ground center. Spend some time getting to know where I'm at before I start opening up my wings and flying. So I want to thank both of you for the opportunity to be on your show. I love your show, your conversations. I plan on giving lots of shout outs to it because I just think it's a great show. We need more people asking intelligent questions.
Well, I don't know if we were intelligent, but we were at least entertaining today. And I'll take it.
We'll take it.
Now that said, of course, if you are at Toronto, we of course have a full store with about 430 herbs now, 450 herbs.
Yep.
A lot of those are Chinese, a lot of those some Western herbs, but a lot of them are Chinese medical herbs because
we got some Ayurvedic ones too. We're multicultural here,
right? And we have about like 150 different types of stones right now.
Wow. I've lost track, but yeah, we got a good chunk of stones.
Right.
Everyone comes in, they're like, wow.
So if you need candles, stones, herbs, we got what you need, you know, for various traditions. Like right now, we don't have our public temple open yet, but it's being worked on. We had it all these altars that were for the public. We just talked to Zach. We're working with our volunteer staff to get the room that we bought and the public temple set up again. As it is going to be, like, you don't have to necessarily buy anything. You just come here to our 607 Gerard Street. Go in there. If you want to buy incense or something for them, that's great for your ancestors, because in Toronto, not everyone has the room to do their own work. And you can come here and do it. Like we had a Buddhist altar. We had a altar to the dead that was highly consecrated. Get about 5 visitors a week.
Well, it was in a movie too.
It was in a movie too. Yep. Our altar was in a movie documentary for York University. So we're gonna put that back up, and it's gonna be available to anyone. that you could just come to the store. You don't, like I said, you don't have to buy anything. If we're here and the door's closed downstairs, you just ring us. We'll just open the door. Like I said, now we'd love it if you do buy something, but if you don't, no, that's great too, because you could just go there, meditate, whatever you need to do. Also, like we have our library is about 1,500 books right now. So we have 1,500 books on almost every metaphysical topic. So if you're interested, come by Toronto, check out the library, check out what we're doing. And then, if you need to like have a place to go pray or something like that, you have our temple will be returning. So August 12th is when we're going to sort of kick off the Goetic immersion, and kind of that, a lot of the things we talked about today about actually making friends is going to be the focus of this Goetic immersion a lot more than it would seem. It's not just the Goetia, because we're also going to do the 72 which is the names of God. So that should keep people somewhat balanced between what is generally considered light and dark, but neither of those concepts apply to either of those forces really. But they do work slightly differently. So that is going to be we're committed to the long haul. We even bought 72 slate things, and get this, like our 72 slates that we're going to have, we're actually going to make available in the temple space that you can use if you want to do your own work after we bless them. So they're going to be available after we bless them for people coming if you want to kind of work with the tools. So there you go.
Yes.
Like, not just the store. We kind of like have a big time community focus. So much so that soon enough, as a last thing, we're going to have a whole set of teas and espresso machine where it's on order. It's coming. So you can kind of hang out, do what you're going to do, order some tea, get some espresso, whatever it's going to do.
Highest quality espresso, because we're picky on coffee. We are picky.
We are way picky. And our tea specialist, super picky.
Super picky.
So the teas will be really good too. So yeah. Way more picky than I am. So on the teas, like tasty, even without sugar teas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a lot of things going on in Toronto. In case everyone's wondering, like that'll keep going. We are going to got one more show till we're ending the season and taking a break for a little while. But then after we, I was joking aside about going to the cemetery and getting an author to kick my ass. But I wasn't completely joking, because we're going to take a break so I can actually finish a book with Zach. And I might go to the cemetery and try to find an author.
Yeah.
That doesn't procrastinate if I could find one.
I'm sure we could find one. Trail's big enough.
Have him come in, get in my head every day. I'm procrastinating. Start writing. Because I have like too many projects and they're starting to eat at my soul that they're not finished. So I'm going to get some stuff finished. And then we're going to come back and do more shows.
So we will be doing pre-bookings for any authors that are interested, but that's going to be months away. But we'll start pre-stacking if people are interested.
And that brings me to the last point, Taren. Taren, we'd love to have you back.
Oh, I would love to come back. I feel like we touched a couple of conversations there that I'm like, we could have a really good conversation on a couple of different subjects.
Live radio, right? That's how it goes.
Yes. I would love to come back to your show anytime. And again, thank you so much for having me. My book's available for pre-order now. Conjuring Dirt, The Magic of Footprints, Crossroads, and Graveyards.
Stick it up again.
Well, we don't have that one, but
she does.
We will be. She does.
We will have it. But there you go. There's a proof copy of what it will look like. As always, even though it's not pandemic quite so much, but still, everyone stay healthy and safe and stay well. And we will see you next week. What are we doing next week?
Next week, we have the ending cap of the season, Awakening the Chakras with Cooch Daniels.
Okay. Nice. Very good. As I said, everyone, have a great Saturday night. That's what it is. And stay well and healthy. We'll kind of take us on out. If you could stay on for a second, Taren, that would be great.